here to exhibit, so appreciate you doing that as well. A couple announcements. We are going to have a raffle today for a few Maryland-related gifts. And part of this process is you'll have to go to the exhibitors hall during the networking lunch, which should start around 12:20, maybe start about 12:30 now since we're a little behind. And you'll get a raffle ticket. And so you get the opportunity to win a Maryland mug, a hat, and I think the grand prize is like a Beats wireless headphones if you're into music and beats and all that kind of stuff. So you have that. Another quick announcement, Antonia Bookbinder with Parks and Recreation and Lindsay Wright have helped to organize a youth program. And part of this youth program, where it's an opportunity for us to beta test a new youth environmental justice program around consciousness raising environmental justice. So as part of this youth program today, there'll be environmental justice consciousness raising activity, urban nature and creek critters walk, how to become an advocate for your community, and citizen science and air quality monitoring training. So they're looking for about 25 young folks, high school students, and also undergrad students who are interested in participating in this youth program. So you can, if you're interested in doing those activities, you can contact Antonia. Antonia, where are you? That's Antonia, or Lindsay. Lindsay, are you in the room? So since Lindsay's not here, you can contact Antonia. So I got through those real quickly. And like I said, we're a little bit behind today, and hopefully we can catch up. And so once we get done with this part of the keynote address, hopefully we can immediately get everybody into their sessions. And the way we'll catch up on time is we'll have to catch up with the lunch period, okay? So don't worry about your sessions, and you'll have enough time. You'll have your hour and 15-minute allotment for each session. So we have a treat today. I'm really excited to have our keynote speaker here. So many of you may know the stories about Curtis Bay, about the environmental justice issues at Curtis Bay, about the fact that you have a youth-led environmental justice movement, which is really a model for how you address social injustice. We have youth across the country right now who are up and fighting against gun violence, right? You have youth across the country who are making their voices heard. In our own state of Maryland, we've also had youth who stood up and said, no more. And one of those young people, she's here today. Her name is Destiny Watford. Let's give Destiny a round of applause. So the thing about environmental justice, you know, the movement is a movement of people who are actively engaged, right? Who are conscious and who show that they have power. And Destiny, as a leader in her community, showed the power of one person, showed how one voice can have an impact on the world, on her neighborhood, on her community. Destiny is the 2016 North American Goldman Prize winner who fought alongside her community to stop the nation's largest trash burn incinerator called Energy Answers. Just these euphemisms, right? Energy Answers. We're gonna come save you with energy. Supposedly renewable. Y'all know what environmental justice folks, that's not renewable. Incinerator waste material, that's not renewable energy. So let's stop that. I think I'm awake now. I was a little tired earlier. Let's sleep here. So they worked together as part of their Fear Your Voice campaign to stop this incinerator. She was a high school student, a 17-year-old high school student at the Ben Franklin High School. This incinerator was gonna be built less than a mile from her high school. And her school system was gonna be buying energy. Think about that, right? How can we put America first if we don't put our kids first? How can we put our kids first if we got our kids going to schools in toxic environments, right? So Destiny was awake. You talk about people all of a sudden being woke. Destiny is woke. That's the power of a youth. That's the power of a young person. So with her work, she had an impact in her community. In her work, she had an impact on her peers. And she continues to fight for a community's future by creating a community land trust to form truly democratic, community-driven. Let me say the word again. community-driven development, not real estate-driven development, not greed-driven development, right? Development for the people, of the people, and by the people. Let's welcome Destiny Watford to the stage. See, I got all excited, forgot to put the USB in. Sorry about that. Yeah, looks like I'm woke now. Oh yeah, I'm ready to go. Okay. There you go. Are you, it's good?
Yes. Thank you, Sokobi. That was a really awesome introduction. This house is the last house that ever stood in Fairfield. Its peeling paint, boarded up doors and windows serve as evidence that the space surrounding it was once a community. And like the neighborhood it was once a part of, once filled with orchards, trees to climb, and waters to swim in, it too has disappeared from existence. The houses came down after decades of people losing their lives to cancer, health, and their homes sacrificed. This is largely due to the deadly and dangerous chemical plants and coal and other hazardous polluting developments that surrounded the neighborhood, forcing residents to be relocated and leave the homes and the community that they loved behind. My name is Destiny Watford, and I'm from a place called Curtis Bay, in a small community in South Baltimore that as recently as 2008 had the highest levels of toxic air emissions in the nation. When I walk through my neighborhood, I hear the constant sounds of trucks barreling down the street. I see gray plumes billowing out of stacks, coal being hauled into trains and piled up into mountains that reach the sky, ready to be shipped overseas. I see endless fleets of new cars freshly imported and parked in massive lots, ready to be circulated across the country. And then, right across the street, I see people lining up outside churches to find a hot meal, and kids playing in a park across the street from those mountains of coal. I see moms and dads at the local library filling out job applications online, and I hear stories about people dying early from lung cancer and children having to play sports and enjoy life while simultaneously suffering from asthma. I see and I hear stories of high school students not knowing where they'll be sleeping from night to night. I see people facing evictions from homes that they're renting that are falling apart and making them sick, but that they still can't afford. Wealth, power, and resources flow through my community every day, right alongside poverty, disease, and the overwhelming feeling that somehow we, my community, has been selected, has been designated, has been utilized as a dumping ground, which is necessary to keep this operation of generating wealth going. But all of this way of sacrificing a community, making it a dumping ground, it's not our fate, and it's not an accident. I started to realize this 5 years ago when my friends and I, then in high school, started a group called Free Your Voice, where we asked basic questions about human rights. We were a part of a nonprofit called United Workers, which was a human rights organization. And we started on this journey around a question about what it means right now to stand up for our basic human rights, for ourselves, for our family, for our community, for our planet, and for our future. Years of struggle led us to win major victories against something that would have been another toxic outgrowth of this history of environmental and economic injustice. The nation's largest trash burning incinerator would have been built less than a mile away from my community if we didn't fight back. An incinerator that would have imported 4,000 tons of tires and metals and plastics per day, all from outside of Baltimore to be burned. An incinerator that would have spewed 240 pounds of mercury every year and 1,000 pounds of lead. But we rose up, and after 5 long years, we stopped it. The incinerator would have been a routine development in my community, and the world wouldn't have missed a beat if we hadn't fought back. It would have been celebrated as a green development by officials, hailed as an economic plus and a jobs creator. Making trash from energy would have been considered a win, but it's not. The structures, policies, incentives that have been created make the soil in my community and many other frontline environmental justice communities across the world rich for growing developments like the incinerator. So what was our secret? How did we manage to defeat Goliath, this monster of a development? The truth is, there wasn't a silver bullet. No one held the key, but if there is a secret from this story, one lesson that I want everyone here to hear is that the land and the spaces that surround us are shaped by and are a reflection of the values of the societies we create. And our lives are shaped by the land that we occupy. Our power as a community, as people, comes from humanizing one another in a world that so often dehumanizes us. I didn't get into this work, if I'm being honest, because I was really passionate about stopping incinerators. I got into this work because the people in the group in Free Your Voice actually cared about what I thought. They listened to the concerns and questions and curiosities I had about the world, not to extract my story for some bigger fight, but to simply build an actual relationship based on dignity and respect. This strong bond, a belief that our lives are sacred, that we have ideas, that we are creative beings, was at the core of our fight. And our biggest victory was that we created and continue to hold this space in the world that so often commodifies us, that views us as clients, as customers, as consumers, as victims. In our campaign to stop the incinerator, our first step was building that feeling across the community. We took what we learned and we shared what we knew with our neighbors. We knocked on door after door and we would hear story after story of people suffering from lung cancer and respiratory disease, folks dealing with asthma. We honored these stories by making videos about Curtis Bay, what we're proud of in the community, as well as what we know needed to change. We gathered thousands of petitions of residents, months of work built into a huge action in late 2013 that we planned to march from the school less than a mile away from the incinerator down the road. It was really incredible. In the bitter cold, we had organized residents and parents and students and teachers and other supporters across the city to march together. This was a critical moment in the neighborhood because it was the first time in a very long time that there was an event like this where my community came together and unified around an issue and demonstrated that in a really big way. After the march, we had really great momentum and built on our strategy. We found that, like Sokobi said, the incinerator was in a contract to sell renewable energy to 22 public entities. And the most significant of those entities, or the ones that hit the hardest or hurt the most, was that the Baltimore public school system was one of them. And when we heard about this, we were really mad. But we also recognized that we had found leverage. We were a part of a public entity that was supporting the incinerator. We had a voice that mattered. It wasn't okay that our public school system would be supporting a project that would harm us. So we dug deep into those contracts and found that each entity could be pulled out without penalty in spring of 2015. So we rallied together with parents and students from the schools across the city around the issue to stop the incinerator. We used art, drawings, paintings, poems, songs to tell our story and to highlight their connection to the incinerator that they could help break. And that led to this moment that we had built up to bring a light and highlight the hidden connection of the Baltimore public school system and the incinerator in front of the school board. Our approach was simple. Being in alignment with the incinerator violated the essence of schools at its core. So we provided the school board with the choice. Get out of your contracts and meet the values and the essence of public education. And the result is that this combination of public pressure, along with creating an opportunity for schools to do the right thing, worked to create a path towards divestment. We continued this pattern of analyzing entities and contracts with the incinerator at their core and calling them to take action. And entity after entity across the region, pressured by a growing number of supporters across the state, made the choice publicly to get out of their contracts with the incinerator, even Baltimore City. And this was huge. But the reality was that Energy Answers, the company building the incinerator, was still allowed to construct, despite the overwhelming public outcry. In fact, they were motivated to push forward and defy our efforts to halt the project. They claimed that we were misinformed and misinforming the public, and that our community actually loved the incinerator and embraced it wholeheartedly. With the help from amazing allies, we learned that the incinerator's permit to construct was on shaky ground because of the delays that we had helped cause, and that the state agency responsible for the health and safety of the environment in Maryland, known as the Maryland Department of the Environment, could act and determine that the permits were expired. We reached out to MDE for months, starting with a simple letter stating the legal facts about the incinerator's permits being expired due to lack of construction. We waited 6 months for a response, and the response from MDE, whose job it is to protect the lives and the health of all Marylanders, was silence. We responded with thousands of petitions and video testimonies from residents that restated that the basic facts, along with the pleas for MDE to do their job and enforce the law. Their response was more silence. And then we decided to give MDE a deadline, from the public to a public agency. A small group of us delivered a written and verbal notice that we were giving MDE 30 days to enforce the law. The consequence of failing to meet this deadline, that was up to us. Intensity was high. It was December of 2015, and Energy Answers was planning on construction in January of 2016. It was the make it or break it moment in our campaign, and we realized that we needed to escalate. So we gathered everyone who stood with us in our campaign, who believed in our struggle, and in a demonstration of hundreds of people, we rallied outside of MDE with a simple plan to, one by one, hand in sunflower-shaped petitions to MDE with the most basic request: do your job. MDE's response was to lock the gates. We were prepared. 7 supporters sacrificed their freedom, engaging in civil disobedience. Months of continued pressure, and finally MDE heard the community and the residents' cries. A call for demand for a sustainable future, and determined that the incinerator's permits were invalid, immediately stopping all construction. We won. We received international recognition for our fight, for our sacrifice. And if this were a movie, the screen would turn black and the credits would roll. But it's not a movie. It's our life. So that was sort of the prepared speech, but I want to go off the cuff a little. I want to talk about, so our victory in our fight around the incinerator was a 6-year-long fight. And I want to talk about what we've carried from then to now. And the first thing that I want to talk to you about is that having a group of people who listen to my ideas and challenge them, and being a part of a fight for a new vision, for a new future in our community, really changed the way that I think about the world and the lens that I view justice. And for 6 long years, we've been carving out space in our high school, Benjamin Franklin High School, to maintain that, to cultivate that. And now, 4 days a week at 8 a.m. every morning, I'm in the classroom talking to students, thinking critically about the issues that we face in the neighborhood, and doing deep research, and like transitioning from this role of student to mentor and teacher, and helping them start to see the sort of critical lens that I was so gratefully got the chance to do and got the chance to develop. And that's been really powerful. And the result of that, and our hope, is that it will create the new generation of leaders that will fight for our neighborhood, that will fight for a better Baltimore. They're really awesome. And the second thing is that is around development. And that is that the way that we do development in the city is unjust. We all know this. I'm sure it's not a surprise to any of you. The current model for development in which my community has led to it being considered a dumping ground, right? Like, it's the current model for development that would have it that I breathe in and my family breathes in and our neighbors breathe in toxic air every day. And so one of the things that we learned from fighting the incinerator and the sort of energy and power that it gave us was that we realized the only way we don't want to keep stopping like the new bad ideas that come out from people in power. We're done with that. We want to create our new vision. We want to create a new vision. It's time for us to think about the solutions that we need in our neighborhood and the city to come to us to make them into a reality. And so one thing that we're doing to build that is creating a community land trust so that we have community-driven development in our community. Okay, last thing. So Baltimore already has an incinerator. It's the Bresco incinerator. It creates 1/3 of the air pollution in the city. And we've been working really hard on creating a zero waste plan with the city because we're tired of this. We're tired of having to breathe in toxic air. And because of our fight, because of the pressure, the city council approved a zero waste resolution, which essentially is a plan that would call on agencies and experts to begin discussing development for a zero waste plan. But right now that's being held back, and it's being held back in a lot of ways. But the two I want to talk to you about is that those who want the current status quo of polluting our communities and putting our lives at risk to continue, in this case, it's the Northeastern Waste Authority. Everyone please remember that name. It's a group you probably never heard of, and it was meant to be that way. That this group is a group that the city paid nearly $500,000 to every year to come up with ideas of how to manage waste in Baltimore. And now that residents are facing the consequences of their decisions and are standing up and are fighting for a new vision, they want to destroy everything that we've been fighting for. Their plan is to have the Bresco incinerator around for the next 30 years. 30 more years of injustice, 30 more years of my family and friends suffering, of residents in Baltimore breathing poisoned air every day. We're not having it. So we're fighting really hard, but we can't do that alone. And the way that you can all help is that winning the fight against Energy Answers and fighting against Bresco, a big lesson that something that it's taught us, or something that we know has to happen, is that as a state, this coming legislative session is going to be really important, because it's in this session that we have the opportunity to remove millions of dollars of public subsidies that go to incineration and put it towards things that should be going to like solar farms and clean energy, but it's instead going to these like old dinosaurs that pollute our air. We have the opportunity to take that money away from them, to take that resource away from them, to build power for ourselves. And that is the course of action that I wanted to leave us all with. Because the only way we're going to make this huge difference is if we do it together. Thank you.
Again, let's thank Destiny one more time. More applause, please. Stand up. Goldman Award winner, youth, environmental justice today, environmental justice now, the current and the future. The face of environmental justice in the state of Maryland. Thank you, Destiny. Quick I said we're a little bit behind, so just a quick change to the schedule. And then I think there's a one missing part to the agenda. We actually do have a block of sessions that start from 1:20 to 2:40. So I just want to make that quick announcement. So the first block of sessions, concurrent sessions, will start at 9:55. So we can go from 9:55 to 11:10, and the second block of sessions will go from 11:15 to 12:30, and then we have lunch that will start at 12:30. Okay, so please go ahead and get to your session. Session moderators, let's go. Enjoy your day. Good luck. Wakanda forever. Yes, the youth advocate track will be in this room. If you want to do the youth activities, as I talked about earlier, meet with Antonia. So if you have any questions about your sessions, you can ask for directions, ask the registration desk. There should be some students in the hallway as well doing traffic control. So let's try to start at 9:55, session moderators, 9:55.